Good morning to you. Today is June 19th, 2022, and it is also the day that we celebrate Father's Day. All the fathers out there who have guided and loved and protected their children. There are many happy memories floating around today in this energy world, and there are many sad memories. Frustration, disappointment, anger, vengeance, shame, resentment that are also floating around here today on Father's Day. Now, I can speak to actually all of those emotions, both sides of being a child who, for one, grew up without her father. My mother told me that shortly after she married my father, he unveiled his pain to her in an unhealthy way. And my mother didn't know how to take it. For years, fear built inside of her. Until one day, shortly after her father's transition to the spiritual world, she chose to leave her husband, my father, 3 kids under the age of 5, with 2 suitcases and $4,000, all the money that she had in the bank that she had recently received from a car accident. And my mother relocated us to the Midwest. And so for years, I was frustrated with my dad. I was frustrated that he wasn't there, that we had to leave him because he wasn't acting right. I saw my mother struggle to maintain a home, put up with a lot of nonsense, lack of support. People often criticized her, even from her own family. And I was frustrated, angry. And then one day I heard my mother's unsuccessful attempt to become a nurse, something that she dreamed of being. She had taken care of a mother who was a nurse, and her daughter was a nurse too as well. And my mother was taking care of this older lady who was a retired nurse. And so it was in her heart to become a nurse. And she told us what had happened, but it didn't really hit home until I saw the burning bed and all of the things that the lady had gone through to try to go to school and build her career, and her husband's opposition. And I remember sitting there watching the film, the 1984 movie, and my mother, each time she would say, "Yes, he did that to me. Yes, that happened." But she wasn't crying. She never called my father outside of his name. She never called his family members outside of their name. She stuck to the facts. But even the facts, for me, it stirred up anger. And when I realized that he had opposed her purpose, which I thought no one has the right to do that, to interfere with someone else's dream, I made a commitment that day, shortly after my experience with pain, that I was going to complete this nursing journey. And I did. And all along, I learned about this generational cycle of pain, unhealed wounds. And over the years, some of that hate melted away as I started having more compassion for my father and realizing that he must have been in a lot of pain. That pain often blinds people. And unfortunately, for some, people that are hurting, they hurt others physically, mentally, socially. And there are times where we did not have the best conversations, my father and I. And there were things that were said. And it's when I finally had a family of my own and realizing how hard it was, how should I put this? How time consuming it was, how much effort it was to take care of children. I had just had a son at that time. That a lot of the anger, the emotions floated. They rose up within me. And again, I text my father and I said some things that were unhealthy because I was in pain. And at that time he said some things that were untrue because I had already went through a lot of my mother's paperwork. I used to straighten out her paperwork and had already been through the paperwork. So I had not only her story, but I had some other aspects of the story of their relationship. And so I remember wanting to make up to my father, right? I remember wanting to finally let go of my anger. And when I tried to do that, when I visited my family a couple of times, I did not get the response that I wanted from him. And this podcast is not, today's podcast is not about throwing blame, but it's about sharing with you my story of growing up as a child of a single parent, as a child who did not have her biological father in the home with her, showing her how a man should love a woman, loving my mother, helping my mother to pay the bills, to make important decisions around the home, to guiding his two sons, who I often saw needed him so much. It's about learning that my father is my greatest teacher, that I learned with him. I didn't want to have drugs and alcohol to control me. So I chose not to drink a lot, not to even have a desire for it. That I can't even tell you the last time I even had wine. I didn't want things to control me. I knew what it was like not to feel like your family was whole. And I wanted to reunite the family concept. I wanted to face my emotions, my anger, my frustrations, my disappointments. Because of him, I wanted to be better. I wanted to have a family and really embody what it means to be a mother, to be a parent. And he gave me things to look for in a man. things that I didn't want, drugs and alcohol in my life. My father not only showed me who I didn't want to be, but it was through what I didn't want to be that I found who I wanted to become, who I am. And I just can't, I refuse to be angry at someone because of his pain and not knowing how to handle it. I refuse to carry that frustration, that disappointment with me because I know that anger, resentment, shame, guilt, all of that is energy, and it can take over your mind because whatever you think about, you become. Whatever you constantly hold in your thoughts, you become. And my life, your life, is too important to become the pain that you had as a child, the pain that you grew up with. Forgiveness is all about, for me, honoring myself, honoring my family, my children, the legacy that I want to leave, reuniting the family concept, helping my children to understand what it means about responsibility, about protection, about teamwork, about guiding, about loving. Because you see, I cannot teach my children what I am not, what I have not become. That if I don't let go of the pain, that energy will seep in everything that I do, that I try to do. I can have all of the best intellectual mindset to do something, but if my heart is not right, because out of the heart flows the issues of life. There are too many children that are still growing up without their father. There are too many children that are in pain because they don't have that male father figure to love them, to show them what love is, to show them how to be a man. My youngest brother, he was 1 years old when my mother left my father. And when I see him, I am so proud of him because he chose to not only take the title, but to be there for his children, even without a role model, his own role model. But when you know what pain feels like, when you truly know and face your pain, you don't want anyone else to go through it. I knew my father not being there was not my fault because no child is ever responsible for what an adult does. My father made a choice and my mother made a choice. And do I blame my mother for leaving my father? No. Do I blame my father for all the things that I've gone through? No. Because it was because of him that I chose to better myself, to be myself, to know what I want, to know what I didn't want. And today, I think was the first day out of 47 years that I sent him a happy Father's Day. Because at first I felt like, why should I have to send him a happy Father's Day? He wasn't my father. But God chose him to be my biological father for a reason. My thoughts are not God's thoughts. And I know He gave me an example so that I could bring out the best in me, to be love, to be compassion, to be everything that I didn't have and more, because that's how God loves me. That's how He has loved me throughout my life. That even when my biological father was not there, God was there to detour me down paths, to tuck me in at night with the music of nighttime creatures, grasshoppers, to see the dark lit sky full of stars and hopes and dreams. Because of my biological father's absence, I relied more on God, who knew me inside out, who knows my father inside out. Everything that we go through is to bring us closer to our Creator. Even all that my father has gone through, has experienced, it was to bring him closer to his Father, to our Creator. Forgiving my father has been a process. There was, right before my husband took us to California in March, I received a picture. I'd always had this picture of me like I was running in Memphis. I don't know, I was probably less than 2 years old. And I felt like I saw that I was running somewhere, going somewhere. My mom was sitting on the porch, grinning from ear to ear with my father's dad on the porch. And right before we left, I received a picture from one of my cousins on my father's side of the family. And that picture was me in that same outfit, along that same sidewalk. I was in my father's arms. That at one point, I had no judgment to him. At one point, I loved him unconditionally. There's so much that happened in life, you guys, that we don't know if we were in our father's shoes, would we have done the same thing? We don't know. If you haven't walked someone's shoes, you don't know what you would have done. So for me, I have to let go of the judgment. I have to let go of the resentment, the anger, the frustration, because it does me no good. That I want a life of peace. I want a life of joy. I want a life of true freedom where I judge no one, where I hold no anger, frustration, fear against no one. That I want the best for everyone, including my father. So I just wanted to share how I forgave my father, how I wish the best for my father, and how I hope that his pain, that he will be completely restored to the love that was once inside of him. That I want all children, mothers, fathers, young children, older children, to heal from the inside out. Because that is the only way that you can really be free, is that we forgive, that we love unconditionally, and we know that everything works together for our good. that our Creator, wants us to have hope and a future. I am grateful for the father of my children, for being here. I've seen his struggles as a father. I've seen his joy. I've seen their joy. And remember that whatever we want out of life, instead of treating people as if they're not doing it, treat them in such a way that they are doing it. Because anger on anger doesn't any good but produce more anger. But love on top of anger. Love is light, the light that many people need in the darkness. Light that will show them who they are, that will help remember who they are. When we say we can't forgive, it's not that we can't. Find it in your heart to forgive, to let go, to love. This is Timika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. May you remember who you are, and may you break the generational cycle of pain, because if you're alive, there's still time to do that, to heal from the inside out.